What if I told you you've already died? And everything you're experiencing now, the sounds, the sights, the people around you, is just a final dream. One last illusion, stretching seconds into what feels like an entire lifetime. This isn't a movie plot, it's a theory rooted in neuroscience, psychedelics, and ancient spiritual texts. Stay with me, this is going to bend your mind. For all of human history, death has been the great unknown, a final, impenetrable border between existence and whatever comes next. We've defined it by its silence, by the absence of breath, the stillness of a heart. It's an event we see as an abrupt end, a light switching off. But what if that's too simple? What if the end is not an instant, but a process, a journey with its own strange, uncharted territory? To understand, we must look past our assumptions and begin with what science can tell us about the moment of death, clinically. It begins with an event called cardiac arrest. Your heart, the tireless metronome of your life, ceases its rhythm. The flow of oxygen-rich blood that sustains every cell in your body halts. Within seconds, a cascade of system failures begins. The lungs stop drawing air. The body grows cold. From the outside, this appears to be the definitive end. The machine has powered down. But in the silent theatre of the skull, something extraordinary happens. The brain, the seat of your consciousness, your memories, your very self, doesn't immediately follow the heart into silence. For centuries, we assumed that without blood flow, the brain would simply and swiftly switch off. But recent discoveries have revealed a startling truth. The dying brain isn't just fading away, it's lighting up. This revelation came into sharp focus in 2013. A team of researchers at the University of Michigan, led by Dr. Jimo Borjigin, was studying the electrical signals in the brains of rats at the moment of death. They expected to see brain activity dwindle and disappear. Instead, they recorded something that defied all expectations, something that would fundamentally change our understanding of the dying process. In the 30-second window after the rats' hearts stopped beating, their brains didn't just flicker, they roared to life. The researchers detected a massive, coordinated surge of high-frequency brain waves known as gamma waves. To understand how significant this is, you have to know what gamma waves do in a living brain. They are the signature of higher-order consciousness. They're active when you're concentrating, when you're retrieving a memory, when your brain is binding different sensory inputs, sights, sounds, feelings, into a single, unified, conscious experience. They are, in many ways, the neurological basis for heightened perception. And this surge wasn't the chaotic electrical storm of a system failing, it was the opposite. The activity was more organized, more synchronous, and more powerful than what was measured in the rat's normal waking state. It was a state of hyperconsciousness occurring at the very threshold of death. For years, this was a fascinating but isolated finding in animals. But then, in 2022, a medical team accidentally recorded the brain activity of an 87-year-old patient as he died from a heart attack. The data was a stunning confirmation. The dying human brain showed the exact same mysterious burst of coherent gamma oscillations. It's a final, spectacular burst of neural fireworks, a last stand of consciousness against the encroaching darkness. The prevailing theory had always been that the brain simply fades to black, but this suggests something else entirely. It's more like a computer faced with imminent shutdown, executing one last critical program. It marshals all of its remaining resources for a final complex computation. But what could possibly be the purpose of this biological final act? Is it just a physiological fluke, the last gasp of dying cells? Or is it something far more profound, a feature of our biology that has been hidden until now? This is where science meets one of the most enduring mysteries of human experience: the life review. For centuries, people who have survived near-death experiences have returned with incredible stories. They speak of a panoramic memory recall, of their entire life flashing before their eyes. Not as a simple slideshow, but as a deeply immersive, emotional, and often simultaneous reliving of their most significant moments. These accounts have often been dismissed as hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen, but what if they aren't? What if this surge of gamma waves, the very waves responsible for memory recall and conscious perception, is the neurological engine driving that exact experience? Could that final, powerful program be the brain rendering a full simulation of your entire life? A final chance to re-experience, re-evaluate, and make sense of the sum of your existence in a compressed, subjective eternity. The brain, in its final moments, doesn't just die. It ignites. It orchestrates a final, grand performance, a symphony of memory and consciousness. A performance that might contain the entirety of who we were. It suggests that we don't just cease to be, we become, for one last moment, everything we have ever been all at once. But this raises another, deeper question. What could possibly fuel such an intense, reality-bending experience? Is there a chemical catalyst, a key that unlocks this profound final chapter? Some scientists believe there is a powerful psychedelic molecule produced naturally in our own brains, perhaps released in a flood at the moment of death, designed to guide us through this ultimate transition. Our journey into the mysteries of consciousness has brought us to a strange and fascinating threshold. This is where the line between neuroscience and mysticism, between the world we know and the worlds we can barely imagine, begins to dissolve. This is where things get trippy. Because at the heart of this mystery lies a single, deceptively simple molecule, a substance that remarkably is not some alien compound from a faraway lab, but something produced right here inside our own bodies. It's called N,N-dimethyltryptamine, or DMT. Found in trace amounts in mammals and in abundance throughout the plant kingdom, DMT is a structural cousin to serotonin, one of our brain's most crucial neurotransmitters for mood and well-being. For decades, a compelling theory has suggested that this endogenous DMT is synthesized in the brain's enigmatic pineal gland, a tiny pine-cone-shaped structure at the center of our head, historically revered by ancient cultures as the third eye, the seat of the soul. This profound connection earned it the nickname the spirit molecule, a term popularized by Dr. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking research in the 1990s. But its roots go much deeper. For centuries, indigenous Amazonian cultures have brewed the sacred plant medicine ayahuasca, a powerful concoction in which DMT is the primary psychoactive ingredient used for healing and divination. When isolated and consumed directly, however, DMT reveals its true power. It is, without question, one of the most potent and fast-acting psychedelics known to science. It doesn't gently open the doors of perception, it blasts them off their hinges. The experience is often described as being shot out of a cannon into another dimension. Within seconds of inhalation, the consensus reality we inhabit dissolves into an incomprehensible cascade of light and geometry. Users report breaking through a veil to emerge into spaces that feel more real than real. These are not mere hallucinations, they are described as coherent, structured and impossibly vivid realities. And within these realities, common themes emerge with startling consistency. Perhaps the most famous is the encounter with seemingly autonomous beings. People from all walks of life report meeting what they call machine elves, self-transforming jesters or radiant angelic figures. These entities often communicate, not with words, but through telepathic downloads of pure information and emotion, sometimes acting as guides, tricksters or gatekeepers to even deeper realms. Beyond these encounters lies the architecture of the DMT space itself. Infinite, self-replicating geometric universes. Imagine floating through a cathedral made of pure light and mathematics, where every surface is a living, breathing mandala, shifting and evolving with an intelligence of its own. It's a direct perception of the intricate patterns that may underpin reality itself. But perhaps the most profound and life-altering experience is the phenomenon of living entire alternate lifetimes. A user might experience being born, growing up, falling in love, raising a family, and growing old in a completely different life, only to return to their body and realize it all happened in the span of a few minutes. And here is the ultimate kicker, the paradox that sits at the very center of the DMT enigma. The entire earth-shattering journey, the meeting with entities, the exploration of impossible geometries, the living of a full lifetime objectively lasts no more than 5 to 15 minutes of clock time. The sheer density of information packed into that brief window is staggering. Users consistently emerge, gasping for breath, looking at the clock in disbelief, with the same profound statement on their lips. That felt like years, a lifetime, an eternity. In the DMT state, linear time, the steady tick-tock that governs our daily lives, simply ceases to be a relevant concept. It stretches, it compresses, it folds in on itself, proving that our perception of its passage is far more malleable than we could ever imagine. So what are we to make of this? Is this merely the brain's circuitry being flooded with a powerful chemical, resulting in the most elaborate hallucination imaginable? Or could it be that DMT acts as a key, a molecular switch that temporarily adjusts the receiver of our consciousness, allowing us to tune into frequencies of reality that are always there, existing parallel to our own? Is it a glimpse into the machinery of the universe, or just the machinery of the mind? At the very core of our brain, nestled between the two hemispheres, lies a tiny pinecone-shaped endocrine gland. For centuries, it was a biological enigma. But many scientists now believe this structure, the pineal gland, may hold the key to one of life's greatest mysteries. The leading hypothesis, popularized by Dr. Rick Strassman's groundbreaking research, suggests this gland is capable of producing and releasing DMT, NN, dimethyltryptamine, and it's theorized to do so at the most profound moments of our existence, our entry into the world at birth and our departure from it at death. This tiny gland has long captivated the human imagination, long before we understood its biochemistry. The 17th century philosopher René Descartes famously called it the principal seat of the soul. He reasoned that because it was the only singular, non-paired organ deep within the brain, it must be the nexus point, the junction where our immaterial mind, our soul, interacts with our physical body. But this reverence isn't unique to Western philosophy. Ancient traditions held it in similar esteem. In Vedic spirituality, it is the Ajna chakra, the third eye, the gateway to higher consciousness. In ancient Egypt, its shape is mirrored in the Eye of Horus, a symbol of protection and spiritual insight. For millennia, humanity has sensed that this small part of our anatomy was profoundly important. Now let's combine this ancient intuition with the cutting edge of modern neuroscience. Remember the startling discovery we discussed earlier? The surge of highly organized gamma brainwaves detected in dying patients. Their hearts have stopped beating. These aren't random neural firings. Gamma waves are the fastest in the brain, associated with the highest levels of cognitive function, intense focus, memory recall, and the binding of sensory information into a single, coherent, conscious experience. To find them in a brain that is, for all clinical purposes, shutting down, is a profound paradox. Then, consider the second piece of the puzzle, the known effects of DMT itself. Those who have experienced it describe not just a distortion of reality, but the complete substitution of it. They report being catapulted into alternate dimensions, intricate and hyper-realistic, filled with complex geometric patterns and encounters with seemingly autonomous entities. But perhaps its most significant effect is on the perception of time. A DMT journey that lasts a mere 15 minutes in our world can be experienced subjectively as an entire lifetime or even an eternity. Time stretches, compresses, and ultimately becomes meaningless. So what happens when we put these pieces together? A chilling yet strangely beautiful theory begins to emerge. What if, in the final moments after the heart stops, that mysterious gamma wave surge is the neurological signature of the brain's last spectacular act? What if the trigger for this event is a massive endogenous flood of DMT released from the pineal gland, the seat of the soul? This could be the biological mechanism behind the near-death experience, a phenomenon reported across cultures and throughout history. The tunnel of light, a classic feature of a DMT onset, meeting otherworldly beings or deceased relatives, a common theme in trip reports. The panoramic life review, where your entire existence flashes before your eyes. It could be your brain supercharged with gamma waves and fueled by DMT, accessing and re-experiencing decades of memory in an instant. The theory proposes that your brain doesn't just switch off. It ignites. It releases the most powerful psychedelic chemical it knows how to make. And in those final, fleeting seconds of objective time, you don't just die. You are launched into an internal subjective reality, a reality where you could live another day, another year, or an entire sprawling alternate lifetime, a whole new existence playing out in the theater of your mind in the space between one moment and the next. This raises a profound question. If an experience is indistinguishable from reality, what makes it any less real? and it forces us to confront the most slippery concept of all, the very nature of time itself. Time is not fixed. It's subjective, tied to how our brains process information. Think about how time feels when you're in danger or dreaming. This isn't philosophy. DMT users report time dilation so extreme that they thought they had families, careers, entire lifetimes, all in under 15 minutes. If that's possible, then, in the moment of death, could your brain stretch those final 30 seconds into a new lifetime? This isn't a new idea. In Tibetan Buddhism, there's a concept called bardo, a state between death and rebirth. In the bardo, the soul experiences visions shaped by karma and memories. In Egyptian mythology, the dead cross through trials and illusions to reach the afterlife. Some say these are metaphors, others say they're literal description of what DMT reveals at death, a kind of interdimensional waiting room, a final dream, or maybe a loop. Here's the disturbing part. If time is illusion, and DMT can fabricate realities, and the brain spikes with consciousness after death, then what if the life you think you're living now is actually your brain dying? What if you already died years ago, and this life is just the dream you created in your final seconds? Maybe this isn't life, maybe this is death. So I'll ask you again, what if you're already dead? And this is your brain's final illusion? Subscribe for more mind-bending videos. Turn on the bell. You won't want to miss what's next.